All right. Hello. Can everyone online hear me all right? Right. Thank you for your patience. We had a bit of a technical delay. Welcome to part two of our front end doubleheader. Today, our longtime member Brian is going to be giving a workshop on React. Um, if you could, please go ahead and fill out the attendance form here real quick. We're going to leave it up for about another minute or so. This will help us greatly to secure resources for future meetings, including pizza. And there is pizza on the way, by the way, as soon as Trevor gets back here. Um, Also, I'll go to announcements now. Next week, we will be doing a meeting on Tor and the deep web. So if you've ever gone down that rabbit hole before, we will be teaching you all sorts of stuff about that. We will be parametering that. Um, and please use your deep web knowledge responsibly. Does anyone else still need the QR code? All right, yeah. So I messed up the dates. Not next Tuesday because that's spring break, but Tuesday the 21st when we come back, we'll be having our tour meeting. And also because of spring break, we will not be having a hackathon this Saturday. So SSD is going on vacation for the next week. All right. And we also have a StackBlitz link for the workshop to follow along with Brian's demo. We've posted that link in the announcements tab on our Discord. And without further ado, we'll give it up for the main man of the night.
Thank you. So I'm Brian, and tonight I have the privilege, I have the honor. We have the pizza over there. uh, yes, I have the privilege of presenting SSD's Intro to React workshop, and the second part of SSD's front end doubleheader. So unfortunately, I won't have much time to cover exactly like just what React is. So I'm just going to keep it brief right now. React is a JavaScript library that's used for creating user interfaces and particularly web applications. And it was made in the early 2010s by the good people at Facebook, now known as Meta. And according to the State of JS survey 2022, it is the most used front-end web framework / library for JavaScript. So it's the library that everyone uses because everyone uses it, and it's very popular, and it's a very good choice for getting into front-end development and getting a job where you can, create front-end apps. So I'm going to start off by talking about components. This right here is the StackBlitz link, by the way. So this is going to be an interactive workshop. I encourage you all to go to this link and try out the workshop for yourself. At the very least, try and do the first exercise, because that first exercise is going to be super important. There's going to be 6 exercises in total, so let's hope I can get through them all. We're going to start off talking about components. Components are sort of the bread and butter of React. React sort of starts and ends at components. So one thing that I should make clear about components is that it's not something exclusive to React. Here we have an example of an Angular component. I would know because I've been doing this recently. And then here we have an example of a Vue component. I actually don't know if this is what a Vue component looks like. This is just what popped up on the Vue.js website. But I assume that's what it looks like, and I've heard Vue is good to use. So there's that. So yes, it's not just React. So what we might want to think about for components in the context of UI libraries is like this one working definition right here. So it's a set of code that generates HTML, is typically reusable, has its own custom properties, and reacts to changes in state. So you might not understand all that right away, but the one thing that I do want you to see right here is the part where it says generates HTML. That's a very important part for components. But yeah, we'll go over what properties and state are later. To get you in the mindset and thinking about what a component is, we're going to use YouTube as an example. YouTube is not made in React, but for this demonstration, let's just pretend that it is. And we should think about what might we make into a component. And when approaching this, I just like to think about like what I might compose into functions in like maybe some Python app. Okay, I want to think like maybe a big structures that I can compose into just one function that I can easily call, or repeated structures that I can call over and over again. So one example of this is maybe this title bar right here. So this could appear on like maybe multiple pages. So we could make this into a component to reuse it again and again. This sidebar, it's a complex component that we could just easily reduce to a single function call. And definitely these videos, you can see they're all over the front page. You've seen them before, and they're all different. They all have different thumbnails and titles, but they're all basically the same structure, and that's sort of a sign that that's something you can easily make into a component. So you might be wondering what a React component looks like in the code, and this is it. This is what the React component looks like. Looks a bit complicated, but we will get through all these parts except for maybe effects. This is actually a functional component. Class components do exist in React, particularly in older code bases, but we're not going to be talking about those tonight. So this is a functional component. First thing you might notice here at the top here is type. This is actually TypeScript. And if you've never coded in TypeScript before, just know that TypeScript is JavaScript with types, interfaces, generics, and a bunch of other stuff that makes JavaScript from being the 16th best language to the 4th best language. So we have that. We have a function. We have the name of a function. Again, some weird things in the middle here, but you might notice this right here at the bottom. And this looks like HTML. And you might be confused because I just said that it was that React is a JavaScript UI library. So is this HTML in JavaScript, or is it JavaScript in HTML? And what it really is it's actually a JavaScript object. Yes, a JavaScript object disguised as HTML. It's in a special syntax that we call JSX, which stands for JavaScript Syntax Extension. It's sort of like JavaScript's own flavor of XML, and it's not quite the same. So here I have an example of an HTML tag, and here's a JSX tag, an input tag. So they're very similar. Okay, you can see they both have input and type. Okay, but you'll also notice HTML has class, JSX has class name. Very important distinction. You're probably going to be using class name a lot, and also autofocus is camel case. Most things in JSX are camel case, so you'll want to follow that trend as well. All right, with that, let's go on to exercise 1. So, yes. Yes. Okay, you're good. You're good. Okay. Yeah. Is there a problem? There we go. It's getting. Add this too. There we go. All right. So this is our to-do list app. Yes, it's a to-do list. It's pretty basic, but it's a very easy way to just demonstrate you the ins and outs of React. Just so you know, okay, if you ever fall behind during this workshop, I have created a file here called instructions.md. These are the exact instructions that I am following throughout this workshop. And if you need to like see like what I typed, like what I might like what you might have missed, okay, you can refer to this. You can even copy and paste from it if you want. And if you really far behind, like say you miss like you miss a whole exercise and you don't know how to proceed with the rest of the workshop, you can click fork, and that will fork the version of and that should fork the version of this repo that I am working on right now, live in front of all of you. Okay, actually, I recommend clicking fork right now. So if you're following this workshop, I recommend clicking fork. So have this here, and yeah, should be good. We'll keep this as a window. All right. So the first exercise is right here in app.tsx, create a navbar component from scratch. So this is why I really want you guys to do this exercise, because you're going to be creating a component from scratch. And this is the one thing that you just do in React all the time. Unfortunately, I'm going to have to set my mic down, so I hope that you guys on Zoom will still be able to hear me okay. All right, so anyway. All right, so right here, what says components, you're going to see a little button here. This creates a new file, so we're going to click that button. And we're going to type in the name of our file. We're going to name it navbar.tsx. TSX means it's a TypeScript React file. And then here we're going to write the magic words that I say at the start of every component, export defaults function. Export means that this function will be exported, can be imported by other parts of the app. Default means it's the default export, and function means it's function. We're going to give this function a name, and we're going to name it navbar. Navbar with a capital N, and an open and closing set of parentheses, and open and closing curly braces. All right, and then we write our return statement. All right, I just like to put that semicolon there. It's optional in JavaScript. And then we are going to write in our component. So we're going to write here nav. And as you can see here, it's giving us a pop-up for this. By just typing in nav, I can use Emmet abbreviations to complete the rest of this. If you don't have this, like maybe right here, I can press command space on Windows. I imagine, well, sorry, control space on Windows. I imagine it might be command space on Mac, but I'm not so sure. And then I can hit enter, and that completes the nav component. I can do something similar with an H1 component. So we're going to make an H1 tag, sorry, H1 tag here. I'm gonna press control space and use Emmet abbreviations to complete that. And then we're going to write the title, which will be to do. Yes, just to do. So we're going to have that. And in order to have styling, we are going to give it a class name. So we're going to remember that in JSX mode, we have to name it not class, but class name. And type in an equal sign, and then set of quotes. And then I believe it's just navbar. Think so. So once that's done, we can hit save, and nothing happens. Nothing happens because we have not included this component in something that is being rendered right now. So what is being rendered right now is this app component. This app component is basically the entire app. So it represents the entire app. The way we can include our newly created navbar component is to hit enter here, type in import navbar from /components navbar. And also, if you try and include it anyway, it'll show red, like the red squigglies that you can like right click and then say, yes, import all missing imports. Uh, so anyway, so we should have the app function right here. We have now the navbar component imported, and now we can include it in our return statement here, and that should render it. So the way we do that is we type in open angle bracket, navbar, / and closing angle bracket. Now, of course, we save, and it's going to yell at us. And the reason why this happens is because when you return a JSX element, or really when you just have a JSX element, there should really only be one parent element. So right here we have like two parent elements, and we want to nest these under just one parent element. Now, what some people might do is they might, and you don't have to do this, they might insert a div and then just put these two tags right here inside the div. But I don't usually like to do that because sometimes when you're dealing with like direct children, it might mess with the styling. So I like to instead use React fragments. And what that is it's basically like it looks like an HTML tag, except it has no name. So just open closing set of angle brackets, and then open angle bracket / closing angle bracket right here. And now that we have that, we can take our two components. I can cut them out there, and I can paste them in. So I'm going to save that. And now we have our to-do list with a nice snazzy nav bar right there. And that should be it. That should be the end of exercise 1. Yes. Code bigger? Let's try Control+. Well, that just does that. But I did. Yes. Okay. I guess I should probably explain this a bit more clearly. A React fragment, when React sees this, it's basically saying, okay, I will render all of your children except you. Okay, so basically, if I put in a div here and you were to inspect element and look into the DOM, you would see that div there. But if I instead have a React fragment, you wouldn't see that div, you would only just see all this children. And it's useful because then you don't have to deal with like direct filtering for stuff. Yes. Yeah, sure. So we can go here, inspect element. It's going to be a bit hard to see. But yeah, right here, we have literally the nav class that we just made and the list container that we have, that is part of the list container class component right here, but there is no extra div here. There is this div right here, root. I'll talk about that in a second, unless there are any more questions. Nope. We will continue. All right, so that's it for exercise 1. So if you've made it this far, give yourself a pat on the back. No, I would. So, all right, and we'll proceed with exercise 2. Well, part 2. Except I should talk about it. So in a React app, you'll notice that we did have an app component, and this might be where you just store the entire component. So React has control over everything in the app. And what this is doing is this React is actually, this app component is actually being placed here in this function called create root in main.tsx. You might have noticed it when we were looking at, I'll close this. You might have noticed it when we were looking at the repo right here. So there is a main.tsx file right here. I don't know why it's not clicking. Let me save this first. Okay, I just can't be okay, there we go. Now it's working. Okay. So yeah, you see that app component right there. And this is basically the function that will render your app. And where you have this function, you'll notice it's saying document get element by ID root. And this root element in your index.html file is where everything in your app is being rendered. So this function will render all of your app stuff right here at this exact location in the index.html file. So that's why you saw that root tag there earlier. All right, let's get into props. So props are short for, I should probably pick this up here. So props are short for properties. Basically, as we saw in the YouTube example, components can have the same structure, but they are still different from each other. Like, you know, these two videos, they have different thumbnails. They have different titles. One of them's live, one of them isn't. And these two list items right here, they have different names. One of them says read books. The other says do homework. And under the surface, we're really just passing props to them. We're sort of like, you would pass attributes to HTML elements. And this is what allows our components to be different from each other, even though they have the same structure. So yes, it's the information we pass to our components. And it's not all that different from passing arguments to our functions. In fact, this is actually how we will access our props. So we have a functional component right here. In our navbar component, we didn't have any parameters. Here we do, and it's called props. And we passed in the list item props, and then we can access it later in our return statement. And that brings us to exercise 2. So I'm going to pull that up. Give me 1 second. I have a printed version of each part. Much easier to work with. Right. Yeah, and I hope all of you on Zoom can still hear me with my loud voice as we get into exercise 2. So this one is in listcontainer.tsx. Add a required title prop to list container, reference it in the return statement below. All right, so the way we do that is we add a parameter here, we call it props. Now, TypeScript does not like it if you have an implicit any. You can change the settings technically, but if you can't type too fast, you can just type it with any. And I don't recommend you actually do this. If you have the time, I would actually instead recommend what I'm about to do now. But if you can't type very fast, then you can keep it as any. It should still work. I'm going to give this a type definition right here. I'm going to call it type, and then I usually just call this new type whatever the name of the component is plus props. So list container props equals curly braces. All right, and we do need to give it a title prop. So we'll just say it needs a title prop, and that title prop must be a string. All right, very good. We have that. So if you have that type, you can now change this to list container props, or you can keep it as any. But I always recommend that you have these types here, so that you can make sure so that you know exactly what your component needs. This is why it's very useful. So, and then right down here at the bottom where it says to do, we are now going to reference our new title prop. So I'm going to remove that and save it. And should refresh it, I guess. Yeah. So now our to do is no longer showing. So now we're going to have access our props. So we do that by saying props. Oh, and this right here is very important. Okay. Right here we're in JSX mode. But if you ever want to switch back to JavaScript mode, all you have to do is type in a set of curly braces, and then you can access your regular JavaScript variables. So we're going to type in props, and then the title prop of those props. All right. So I can refresh this. It's still not showing because remember, we need to actually provide that in our component, much like we provide attributes to our HTML elements. So we're going to go into back into our app. If this were, oh, it's actually showing right here. So this is why you should always provide type to your prop. It's actually saying it's missing the title. So very useful to know that if you've done something wrong, if you're missing something, it'll tell you right there. Now we are going to hit enter right there. And now we're going to provide an attribute much like we would to an HTML element. That'll just be title, hit enter, and then we'll type in the name of the title that we want. So we can name it school work. Sure. We save it, and there you go. Now we have a title. Now we have the title of our list container. It's now schoolwork. You can name it whatever you want. It won't matter for the rest of this. And there we go. So that's pretty much it for exercise 2. Now, just to clarify something, you'll notice that title had to be a string. But sometimes you might want to pass in a number or a boolean or something else entirely. If you ever want to do that, then you can use curly braces, just like I sort of mentioned earlier. Go back into JavaScript mode, and then just pass in your number or your boolean, and that'll work just fine. In fact, you can actually you can pass in a string in the same way. I'm pretty sure. So we have schoolwork here. And that should do it for exercise 2. All right. Did anyone need to look at this a bit longer? No? All right. You have a question? Hmm? Is that what you need? All right, we good? Okay. All right. So a word about props. This is not the updated. This is not the updated slides. That should say type list item props equals braces. But it's very similar concept. This is why we like TypeScript. We have these types that allow us to sort of list exactly what our component needs, so we know if we're setting up our component correctly in the parent element. So very useful. Again, that should be types, not interfaces. All right, let's move on to component arrays. So when we're making our to-do list, what we might want to do is, we might want to, type in, read books, do homework, go to class, stuff, more stuff, even more stuff. Okay, we want to add more items to it. But we can't just type list item over and over and over again. We can't do that. And plus, this whole JSX element, it's not a very easy data structure to manipulate. So what we instead might want to do is use component arrays. So we can store the data. We can store the data that we need. We can store all our props into an array. And then when we're ready to turn it into components, we can transform this array into a series of components using a mapping function. So here we might have an array of, read books, do homework, go to class, stuff, more stuff, even more stuff. And they're just strings. That's it. It's just an array of strings. And then we can, create a mapping to a new array that we'll call list items. And that list items will contain all of the JSX elements that we need. And then finally, when it's time to render, it will render all of the div elements as it should. All right, on to exercise 3. All right. So this one is in listcontainer.tsx. Here it is. Render list item components from an array. Use the map function to map array elements to components. All right. So we're going to want to create a new array. This array will hold our JSX elements. So the way we do that is we're going to declare a new array with const, and we're just going to call it list items equals school items. Got it. Map is a very useful function in JavaScript, especially useful for this. What map will basically do is it will say, okay, given your array that you've given me, okay, I'm going to take each element of that array and you will pass me a function telling me what to do with that element, and I'll make that a new element in your loop. Sorry if that sounded a bit confusing, but hopefully if I get into this, then it'll be easier to understand. So this is a function, so we are going to give it a set of parentheses, and now we're going to have to pass it a function. So yes, this is JavaScript. We pass callback functions to our functions right here, and we're going to want to take in two elements. We'll take in just the value of the element. I just like to call it element. Name it like just value, and then the second parameter is going to be index. We are going to need the index, so we're going to have that, and then we're going to type in an arrow, and that's it. Okay, if you wanted to, what this will do is this will basically return. It will right away return whatever we give it. In fact, actually, I'm going to create a set of curly braces because you might want to do more stuff in this function. So this is like we're giving it the function a proper body, and we will write a return statement for our callback. And again, I like the semicolon. All right. So we do need to return something. So we see all these list items right here. They're being hard coded in. We're going to want to take one of these. So I'm going to take one of these list items. I'm going to copy it. I'm going to go back up here up to our return statement. And I'm going to paste that in. All right. So now that we have our list items, instead of referencing the specific element in our school items array, we can instead just access the value of that element. And right here where it says 0, this is going to be important for later. We're going to replace this with index. Don't worry about what that's passing an index right there. That's mostly for when we want to set our items later, when we want to edit them, and when we want to delete items. But that's for later right now. It's very important that you get lm right here in the items property. Now, once this is done, you can hover over list items, and you can see the type. It says JSX element array. So this map function basically took each element of our school items array and it mapped it to a JSX element array. So it just transformed all these elements from this into each of these. So hopefully that will give you a good understanding of what the map function does. Now that we have that component array, did anyone still need to look at this? We good? Good. All right, I'm gonna move on right here. So now that we have that, okay, we no longer need these list items right here. So we're going to delete them. So right here, go down to the last list item, delete that. You can save it, and you can see now the list is empty. Nothing being linked between these two divs. So we have nothing, but we do have a new list items array that we can just pop right in, and it will render all of those components. So we go into JSX mode by typing in our curly braces, and then we reference our new array list items. So now we save that, and there we go. Our items are now back because we had this array right here, and it transformed it into the list items, and now we have we access it right here, and our list items are back. So that should be the end of this exercise. But if you took a look at the inspect window, we now have an error. Each child in the list should have a unique key prop. And this is just something to keep in mind with React. Whenever you have these component arrays, React wants easy prop to reference to tell the items apart, and that's the key prop. The key property has to be unique for each of the list items. So we're going to type in a new property here called key. Now you could get some library that will generate a random ID for you that will be unique. For the purposes of this demonstration, index is good enough because the index is unique for all of the items. So we can just have that there. So now if we go back to inspecting our element right here, go back to our console, we clear it, and we refresh. Oh wait, I can't do that. Refresh right here. Yeah, we don't have an error anymore. So it's important that you have that key prompt right there. All right. That should be it for exercise 3. So now let's progress to we can now progress to the next exercise. State. All right. So state is a very big part of React. So something that you're also going to use a lot. So we'll get into this right here. Components, they are not just static elements. Theoretically, if you've done all the stuff that we've done up to this point, and you just use that to make your React apps, you basically have a static element. Okay, but we want more than that. Okay, we want things to change. We want it so that when our user interacts with things, things will change. Right here, we have an example where when I click on these list items, they're actually being crossed out. So that's an example of me styling them differently based on the current state of the app. So you might be tempted to use prompts because we can use prompts to make components look different. Why not use them to change how they look? To change how they look, and that's not really a good idea. And React actually, I don't really let you do this. You shouldn't use you shouldn't change the prompts directly. It's sort of on the same theme as taking a adding function and then just changing the parameters as soon as you receive them. So it just doesn't really make sense. It's not really what prompts are meant for. Prompts are more for setting up the not really for storing how to do things. So components cannot change their own props. Props ideally set up the component before it's rendered. Changing props won't cause the component to re-render. So instead we use state. This is what state looks like. This is the impact of not quite. This is a use state function. This is how you're going to be hooking into React state. There's a few components here that there's a few parts here that we should take a look. This right here is sort of a getter, and here we have a setter. So we have something to get the state and something to set the state, and right here we have an initial value that we provide to state. So this is an example of input string right here. So we might use this to store like the current input of a form. The initial value is just going to be an empty string, but maybe when the user types in something, we can call the setter and change it so that the input string is now whatever the user typed in. And then whenever we want to access that, we use our little getter here. And then once we have state, we can use these things like we can use event handlers. I named this Go, but it might be confusing if we have a backend written in Go. So probably better to name it something like on crossed out toggle. So probably a more appropriate name. And here on the div, we reference that event handler function right here on our on-click event. And then we can use that to change the state. Maybe it'll be easier if we show it in the next exercise. So let's move on to exercise 4. As a reminder, if you fall behind, if you haven't sort of split up in exercise 2, you should be able to just fork the repository that I have. You can go back to the static link and you can fork this again. It will be right where I'm at right now, so you get all caught up. All right, exercise 4 is in listitem.tsx. So we're going to go into listitem.tsx. Here it is. Create an is crossed out state and write an event handler to toggle state. So you might notice that I'm clicking these, nothing's happening, nothing's changing them. Right now, we want to have a state for so whether or not it's been crossed out. So we're going to write our write our React hook, use state hook, just like we have shown in the presentation. Just write in the const, and then we're going to capture this in an array right here, and we're just going to name it is cross out, and then a comma set is cross out. All right. Set that equal to React use state, and now we need an initial value for this. So initially, when our user creates a list item, we don't want it to be crossed out, so it should be false. Makes sense? And there we go. We have our state. Now we need an event handler to go with it. So we're going to create a new function. All right? Going to just make this an arrow function. So we'll start with const. I think we can just use it using the normal like function syntax, but I'm going to use const. I'm going to make an arrow function here, and we're going to call this on cross out off. Just something that makes sense. All right. Now this is not going to it's not going to take in any parameters, so we'll just have an empty set of parentheses, then an arrow, and then our function body. All right. So in our function body, we need to we're going to use this function to change state. So in order to do that, we're going to use this setter that we have here. You can see the type of the setter. It's actually like this React dispatch set state action. So it's a bit complicated, but we don't need to worry about that. We can call it like just like a function here. So set is cross out. Now there's a few things we can do here. We can either set this to a literal value. So if we wanted to, we can literally set this to true. And that would work. We would change state to true, except now we have a way to change it back to false. So this isn't what we want, but you can use it for other things. Now, something that you might be tempted to do is just take is crossed out. Don't do this, by the way. Take is crossed out and then just do the opposite of that. But typically this is discouraged. You don't want to set state based on state. It sounds kind of confusing if I put it like that. What you instead want to do is you want to actually pass this a callback function. So we're going to pass a function to our function, just like we do in JavaScript. And what this function will take in is the previous value of the state. It'll just take in whatever state was before we started changing it. Then we'll write our arrow here. And then, once again, we just, it's a toggle, so we just want it to be whatever the opposite of what state was previous. So, previous, now not previous. Makes sense, right? All right, so that's it for setting up our state and our event handler. So, we should be ready to reference this in, our return statement. Yeah. So in our return statement here, down here where it says item display. So right here, you'll notice that we have two classes right here: item list item text and list item text done. List item text done is actually what causes it to have that strike through style. But right now it's set to false. That basically makes it so that it's never crossed out. This is the only class that's going to be on this div. But we don't want it all that always false. We want it to be based on whatever state was. So we'll type in is crossed out here, and then we'll save that. So if I click this, nothing happens because we didn't set up our event handler to be called on click event. So we're going to hit enter after this ending brace here. We're going to type in on click. And now we reference our event handler, which, if you'll remember, we just named on crossed out toggle. I'm going to put that in there. We save that. And now we can cross out our list item. And what this is doing is each time we click this, it calls this on crossed out toggle function, which goes up here. It sets the state, whatever state was not. So is crossed out switches to true from its initial value of false. And then back down here is crossed out. Now add this extra class to it that says list item done. And then it renders with it being crossed out. And I believe that should be it for exercise 4. So, yes, I'll leave this up if anyone wants to keep looking. Yes.
Can you repeat why we shouldn't do set is crossed out and the opposite of is crossed out?
So the reason why we should have this callback function,
Yeah.
I'm going to be honest with you, I don't know exactly. Okay. I did know that it has to do with how React state how I think it has to do with like how component lifetime work, but I'm not exactly sure. Yeah, like you.
Yeah, TLDR had a trigger the event multiple times to add changes quickly. So by giving it a call and I can get whatever the current value is, if you were to set it directly, then it wouldn't get the accurate value because you end up erasing it. So that's pretty much why. So unfortunately, React is complex and a lot of things.
Yeah. So yeah, what Blake said pretty much sums it up. Luckily, it's not too hard to just add this callback function and just set it on previous state. So I think that's good. And I'm going to be honest with you, you know, doing React, some people will say that it's that has a bit of a learning curve to it, but I personally, enjoy it. Yeah, I personally think it's a pretty fun UI library to work on. So yeah. Anyway, we'll now move on to the next part. So yes, a word about props and state. Okay. My first one is pretty crucial topic is deciding when to use props and state. Ideally, use props when something is not going to change, and use state when something is going to change. And you also use state when you're using forms. More on this later. That's exercise 6. Okay. Right now we have one more part to get through before we get to the 6th part. So conditional rendering. So as I actually showed you earlier, state can be used to change how things look. So that not only includes like styling, like right here I made text gray and I had the text decorated with strike through. So that makes it so that it looks cropped out. And very useful just to see if something is cropped out. But we can also use conditional rendering to render completely different components. So right here, this third item I have here is an input box. It looks nothing like these first few things. We're rendering something completely different now, and that can continue to be based on state. We use state to change how it looks. So different style of text, different elements, etc. So there are different ways to do this. So right here I have the double ampersand sign. So the logical and operator. And what this is saying is, if this is true, view mode. If this is true, render mode. Okay. If not, then just stop there. Short circuit. Okay, we're not rendering this. Just render nothing at all. So useful if you want something to render or just not render. You can also, that's logical and you can also use the ternary operator. Also very useful, and I'm going to use it in this next exercise. So here we have simple addition. If it's true, render whatever it is that comes after the question mark, which is the p tag here. But if it's not true, then render everything that comes after the code, which is this input element right here. And if you want to do if statements, sure, do if statements. That works too. Yeah, this does not have I think it was this one. So if you want to use if statements, you just use if statements to say element is data, the type of data element. So this is actually an example that I used in a previous project of mine that I did in React. where basically I check to see if this component had an image URL that exists. So if it was defined, then I would render the image. And if it wasn't defined, then I would just render a text box that says whatever the title of the image is. And then I just render that. All right, so we're moving on to exercise 5. So, all right, exercise 5. If you're still with me, I applaud you either way. But if not, that's okay. I'm still happy that I get to show this here. So exercise 5, this is in list item.tsx. Right here, set up conditional rendering to render the input box. If is editing is true, render the edit form, else render the normal box. So you might have noticed that these list items, they have these little pencil icons, and if you click them, nothing happens. They are buttons, they do stuff, but they're not really rendering anything different. I'm going to refresh this just to reset state. So we should now change it so that it should render something different. And right here, you'll notice that I store them in functions. This is I believe this is the preferred way of rendering different components. So you can save on resources and don't have to so that your React app doesn't have to spend time like rendering this component that it's not even going to render. Just call the function and then it will render it. Anyway, right here in our return statement, it's we have a list item component, and sorry, we have a list item right here, and it's currently calling this function called item display, which is this right here, and it's basically inserting all of this stuff right into these two div tags. But we don't want it to always call item display. We want it to also display this this input box that I made right here. It's darkened, that means it's not being used right now. So we're going to use a ternary operator to do this. So we actually already have a state to determine whether or not we're editing it or not. That is, I believe, just is editing. So we'll have is editing there. All right. So if it's editing, call item display. Sorry. If it's not, if it is edited, we display input box. That's what we do. Okay. So display that whenever editing is true. If not, we just do our normal item display. All right, I'll save that. I'll just press enter here every time just to make that easier to see. So there we go. But yeah, it's not good. It's gonna be auto running. So now when we click these, it now renders input box. And it now actually shows like the current content of that list item. So we can change this, we can change this to class, and then we can save it. Except that we didn't actually save it. This is not a mistake. This is actually something that we need to do for exercise 6. So but yeah, we do have an input box. So we are making progress. We are making something that looks a lot more like a to-do list that we can edit and change. The loop functions, they don't do anything right now. We'll change that in a second. But yeah, that should be it for exercise 5. That's 7:13 right now. So we have a few more minutes left, but hopefully we'll get through. Luckily, this next part is not too long. I'm going to have to progress it now. So. Oh yes, one more thing, conditional styling. So you can use conditional statements to affect how your components are styled. But you can also do this. I get this right here. So there's explain here. But if you do this, you can actually have a style object that is typed with React.css properties, and it will have all of the CSS properties that you know and love, and you can do that all in JavaScript if you want Right here, as it says, it's generally not recommended due to performance reasons. Changing class names, as I showed in the previous slide, is preferred. But you have this, and I just think this is really cool. So you know this exists if you absolutely need it. All right, let's move on to exercise 6. Forms with state, something that seems might seem a bit trivial, but is actually pretty important. So I'm gonna mention this concept of control here. So in HTML, we have different elements that are designed to take input from the user. Realize I've been picking up this mic the whole time. Sorry. I hope you guys have been able to hear me on Zoom here. But in HTML, we have these different elements designed to take input from the user. So we have this input tag, and you might use these a lot when developing apps. It makes sense because you want to provide the user a way to interact with an app, and you know, forms are a very basic way to do that. These elements, they have their own version of state separate from React state. And we don't want that. We want React to be the single source of truth when it comes to state. We want all of these input elements state to be controlled by React. So yes, this makes it easier to pass values to other components and have other parts of our code change the values of our form elements. And these are what these elements that are controlled by React state are called controlled components. And yes, it might mean a bit more code, and it might be a bit tedious. It might just seem like something that could have been abstracted away, but yes, you should do this. It's important, and it's actually breaking our app right now, so we should change it to use controlled components so we can fix this. All right, exercise 6. This is the last exercise, so hopefully everything goes well. In list container.tsx. Here it is. Add state for the form values. Change to the form with update state. State changes the value of the form. Seems a bit confusing when I put it like that, but yes, that is what we have to do here. So yes, luckily it's not that hard to do. We just need to go down to where the list item is being rendered right here. I believe it's this. Oh wait, one thing you have to do. I almost forgot. Okay. Back in list container.tsx. Remember right here where we add school items? We don't want to use this anymore. Okay, because we have a perfectly good version of state to map instead of our school items list, which is hard coded into our app. Why didn't I do this earlier? Because there is nothing in it, and it wouldn't have been interesting to show you a completely empty list that I can't actually add anything to because I haven't set up state with the forms properly. So be sure to change school items to items. Items, these are versions of state that we're using in the normal string array. And you'll notice right here, I did have to provide a type of string array because it doesn't know what this kind of array is different array. So now we change that. Now we can set it up so now it's controlled by state. It's very simple. All we have to do is add something to our value. The value attribute of this input is just whatever the current value is of this input element. So whatever is in the text box right now, essentially. And we want that to be input string. This is a state specifically made for this form. It'll just store the input, whatever the input it is, the form, and we can reference it elsewhere. Then another attribute, the onChange property here. onChange. Now I don't actually have a callback handler. Event handler set up for this. We don't have to define one up here. We're just going to write it right here in between the two braces. It's just going to take an event object, and it's going to call set input string to target value. Save that. And now it should work. Things one, things two, things three. So now we have something that looks a lot like a to-do list app. We can click these to cross them out. We can change them. So this is like homework. This right here is like a class, like, go to class and all that other stuff. If we want to delete items, we can, they're gone. There we go. It looks like a to-do list, it feels like a to-do list, and it is a to-do list, okay? We made a to-do list in React. So if you did this, if you followed all the way through, I congratulate you, pat yourself on the back again, okay? It should be a public repo. So if you want, you can check out this repo again at Brian-Henningson's to-do list workshop. In the meantime, I'm going to talk a bit more. I'm just going to cover a bit more. We're at the end of the exercises right now, but since we have a little bit of time left, we have time, right? 10 minutes. That's enough time. I'll talk a bit more. We'll talk about getting started with the beat. If you see a tutorial in 2023 that tells you to use Beat, that's wrong. Or not preferred. I prefer to use Beat. Okay, I hear it's pretty much just one-to-one, from Create React app. So we'll just use Beat instead. For now, Beat is French for quick. It allows you to quickly set up and develop your app. So then you can just use npm create beat at latest to create your React app. In fact, I actually might have time to share it with you. So I'm going to share my entire screen. I'm going to demonstrate to you right here in front of you how this works. So I'm just going to open this in terminal. Now, this only works if you have the node installed. Installing node can be a bit of a hassle, but luckily in our to-do list workshop, I have a README that actually gives you some pretty good instructions. They give you instructions on how to install Node. You can also just look up how to install Node. It's not something that it's not something that just I made up. And yeah, so we have our terminal right here. So I'm going to run npm create beat at latest. Going to give me some prompts here. Beat project, sure, that's fine. Select a framework. I want to do React, and I want to choose a language. So this is how you set up types like that. And those here, it says SWC. SWC stands for I think it's speed web, or I think that's what it stands for. I believe it's a Rust-based compiler, which is actually pretty fast. I've not tried it myself, but it might be the new norm that I use from now on. So pretty useful tool right there. I'm just going to hit React, and there it says cd project npm install run dev. I'm just going to open this because I prefer this code. So we're going to open this in code right here. We can see you can see that it's provided some files for us right now, but we do need to run npm install, make sure that we have all our dependencies installed. Run npm install real quick. That's not how you spell it. And it's just going to take a hot second. So now we have the node modules folder. There we go. Now that we're ready, we can now view our app by running npm run dev. All right, now open on localhost 5173. And this is it. This is literally our React app, the one that I just scaffolded right now. Okay, I can click this, you can see that it sort of has a state of its own. Okay, but if you really want to, make your app from this, all you have to do is just you can delete app.tsx. You can delete the CSS if you want. Probably not main because this one renders your component, and otherwise you're just going to be typing the exact same thing. So yeah, you can delete these app files and then just make your own app from there and get started. So very quick, very easy way to get started in React. I'm going to now proceed with the presentation. So yes, run npm run dev. You can delete these later. Just remake them. All right. So in 6 minutes, I will now explain as much as I can about what else there is to React. There's just a few small concepts that I didn't think were too necessary to have exercises of their own. There's this concept called lifting state up or raising state. So say we might put our state hook right here in component. But we also want sibling to have access to state. Unfortunately, there's not an easy way to just throw state over to the sibling component. What you instead might want to do instead is just simply raise state so that it lives in the parent instead, and then we can pass it back down as props. So now these two component and sibling props have access to the same state. They can both get state and they can both set state. But that can be complicated. Sometimes it can be complicated to just tell where state lives. It can be all over the place, and it can just make your app pretty complicated. Redux, I hear, is a way to make state more centralized. I've heard that it is one of the most loved and hated React libraries out there, but it is an option to help keep states centralized and might be useful for larger projects. I hear there's also a lot of boilerplate involved, so something to look into. Importing images. Importing images, I believe you have to do this because of how when you build your app, these file locations are going to be in a different place when you're ready to build it. So in order to actually use images, you have to use this kind of weird syntax where you say import GitHub logo from this file path, and then you just reference it like you would normally in the source attribute right here. So yes, this has to do with how locations might change. It's kind of weird, but that's how you do it, and pretty simple. Side effects. You might have noticed in the very beginning, I showed you a component that had this use effect hook. So occasionally, when state changes or when something changes in your app, you want something else to happen. Maybe you want to make an API call, or maybe you want to put something into local storage. This is what you would use. It's a use effect hook. It's for side effects. So the use effect hook, all you'll do is you'll pass it a function, no parameters necessary, and then you'll put in the code you want to run, and then right here is a dependency array. So when something in this array changes, this code will run. So it's a side effect of the item state changing. Routing. If you want your app to have multiple pages, there's a library for that. It's called React Router. So something to use. I've tried using it to build a portfolio website. It's good. Something you can use. And UI libraries. There's all kinds of UI libraries, all of which have been pre-styled for you, are ready to use. If you don't want to mess with CSS styles, we have there are libraries that exist that are already styled. We have Mantine, we have Ant Design, we have Material UI. Y'all know Material UI. It's makes your app look like it's made by Google. So something we know and love, something familiar. And they're all styled, they're all ready to use, and you can put that into your app, and then there you go. You got styled components. If you there's also more than this, okay? Maybe not just a full-blown UI library. Maybe you want one component for just this image carousel, or maybe one component for this markdown taking app. Okay, go on npm like go onto the Node Package Manager website and just look up React components for whatever it is you need. Because one of the things that makes React great is that there's all kinds of React components that people have already made, and then you can just import them into your app, and then you can just use them. You don't have to reinvent the wheel. You don't have to come up with some funky code to, make images slide across the screen. You can just, use what people have already made. So very useful part about React. Another one of the things that makes it very attractive. Questions? No? Yeah.
I have a really tiny one. You would start like somewhere in the middle of creative perhaps for the release race. Is it like something instead of like hash maps in like other languages? Like the value key on the value.
Do you mean like objects in React? What do you mean?
I don't remember what you actually had. You had like these items, the dot map or.
No, that's no. This map function. This isn't like a hash map or a tree map. This isn't like that. It basically means take these items, map them to these items. Take this array, map them to this array. So mapping as in like transforming, okay, not like hash map or tree map, like you might. Okay. All right. Yes.
Say that that UI library that looks like Google, right?
Yeah.
Is it going to come with its own CSS, or is it just like the component?
It's mainly just I think it's just the component from what I've used, but they do have a property on each component called SX, and it sort of allows you to add styles on top of the styles that have already been added there. So you can customize the styles. I don't believe it includes the CSS. I'm not 100% sure.
It's just the component. There's like 4 optional styles that come with it, but that's it.
Okay.
Okay. But yeah, you can add custom styles. I know this because I have tried that before. Okay. Did you have a question?
I know that. That would be.
Yeah. So TypeScript has static type checking, which is the one big benefit of TypeScript. Is that when you're coding, when you're like writing your app, okay, and you like forget to add a property that should exist, or just working with JavaScript objects and you're missing a property that should exist, or maybe you're passing something to a function that's the wrong type, or just other things where you normally expect a type error. Okay, you'll get these red swigglies. Okay, I don't believe this happens in normal JavaScript. It's just going to say, okay, I didn't get a prop, I didn't get a title prop. That's okay. Okay, here you're getting an actual error. Okay, you're getting something that actually tells you, yes, there is something wrong with your app. And this can save you a ton of time because you can be searching all over the place. You're gonna be thinking, okay, why isn't this working? Why didn't this render? Okay, there's no error that tells me what happened here. And TypeScript will give you that error. It will tell you like what you need. Do any of you guys want to add something to that?
Yeah, I was gonna say, because of the error, it makes actually a lot easier to debug and scale a lot better. So if you, excuse me, actually want to look at like far on an actual professional code base, most of the time they're going to use TypeScript instead. So like if you're actually finding this likely part of something actually activity must, especially for new projects. And I've never met a person ever who like sort of using TypeScript and wanted to go back to JavaScript. So I'm pretty sure more TypeScript than
There's a reason it's the 4th most loved language according to Stack Overflow. Did anyone else have a question? Yeah.
What platform do you want to use for like the
For this? I think it varies. I think, I plan on making a, portfolio website that uses GitHub Pages. I think Jonas in his previous workshop mentioned that's a good way to, you know, create your own personal web page. But there are other ways to do it. Did you mention like AWS or?
Yeah.
Yeah.
they can also use that file, AWS.
One of the things that's really dependent on is whether you have a static site or not. A static site means that the content is the same for all the users. You can still have like dynamic behavior and stuff, but that happens on the user side of things. You wouldn't have like a backend server running things. So if you're using something like GitHub Pages, which is static site deployment, you can't have like a backup server running things. There are all kinds of various options for doing different things. But in general, if you have the option to do a static site, definitely do that. GitHub Pages is a good place to start looking. It's pretty easy to get working. But there's hundreds of options.
All right, any more questions? No? All right, thank you.
All right, thanks so much for coming out, everyone. Again, I just want to thank Brian for an incredible presentation, his first with SSD. Incredibly well prepared, informative, and like, I know you said you enjoyed it, but I know I myself and a lot of people have found React to be a pretty difficult library with a steep learning curve. So covering all you did in only 75 minutes and that level of depth, it was really impressive. So can we get a second round of applause for Brian? Yeah, so again, just quick reminder, no meeting next Tuesday, no hackathon this Saturday. We're going on spring break. Hope you all have a nice, fun, safe break, and we'll be back on the 21st with our spooky, scary deep web tour meeting. Have a good
I
one.
did it last. I did it in the summer. For Christmas? No, you don't like Christmas? I don't know.
And the week out, and per Blake's request, the week after tour meeting is our special robots workshop.
Hello. CJ.
Oh, brownie, actually.
Yeah, they took so long. It took, I ordered it at 12:50 and I got it at no, I ordered it at 5:50. I got it at 6:30. So I got free cookies or free brownies. They're waited so long.
I didn't think so.
Because I ordered grilled chicken. Because my friend said it was good.
Gotta fit in the progress.
What?